Hello, everyone. Here we are, another day. We're back again. We have our coach, Liz, here today with us. She's one of our holistic NeuroGrowth success coach. Liz, thank you for being here with us today. This is amazing to have you, and we have a big topic to talk about, right?
Yes, thank you so much for having me.
Yes.
We're going to be
So,
talking about transitions, right?
that's right. Yes. Because you were saying that you've been using that a lot in your work and guiding your
Mhm.
clients with
I
that,
have.
right?
So I work with mostly high school and college students. And for some of them, it's the transition, from home to school or school to home. I have some that it's from class to class. They're anticipating what's coming up. They feel anxious maybe, or they're not sure what's going to happen. And so they need some help sort of grounding themselves and thinking about that. For other students, it's about the bigger transitions, from middle school to high school, for example, or high school to college. I have some students that we can talk about in all of those situations.
Beautiful, beautiful. But you also had a lot of transition in your life too, but I want to ask about that. And then before we get started, those of you who've been following us, you know that we have to bring ourselves here and now. Otherwise, we can't have this conversation. Because I don't know about you, Liz, but most of the time our brain is either in the past or either in the future planning stuff and thinking about all the what ifs that's gonna go wrong, right? Does that happen for you?
Absolutely.
Thank you. I'm not alone. So those of you out there, you're not alone either. We are all together on this. So how many times did you think about the past today? Any
Oh,
numbers?
I'm not even sure. I was all over the place today. I'm helping my teenage daughter look for a car. So I feel like for a lot of today, I was in the present.
Oh, nice. That's good. Yeah,
That
yeah.
was helpful,
But
but yeah.
but any memories from the past of you having a car or giving her a car that was scaring you about past instances coming?
Yes, and thinking about my past cars and, how long I had each of them and how they served me or not. And yeah,
Mhm.
so a little bit in the past, but I feel like I tried mostly in the present today. Yeah.
Yeah, because you had to do some here and now work, right? You were doing
Yes.
some learning and maybe teaching her some of the strategies that you're using to find a new car, right? So that's
Yes.
exciting. So, but the only thing is with the past is like normally when we go to the past, I wish to say we go to all the pleasant experiences, but no, most of us don't. Sometimes they come, but most of the time, if it's like without our consciousness, if it pulls us, it's usually something that we're beating ourselves up about or we are not happy about, and we should have done it like this, and I should have said this, could have, would have, should have, right? All of those things, right?
Right. Yeah.
So when we do that, we can't be here and we're unavailable here. So the only thing we can do with the past is just learn the lessons, and we really have to let it go because it's wasting a lot of time and energy and away from here and now. And the other thing we do is the future, right? Maybe you were thinking about the future. How long is she going to have this car for?
Right. And will it serve her in college? She'll be in college in a couple of years. So thinking about that, and can we find the right car that's going to last long enough? And so thinking about the future a little bit. Yeah.
Yeah, always, right? And then if it goes further, I mean, sometimes you think, is this going to be big enough for her? Is it, as all of those questions, right, comes up. So just with a simple car, we can go back and forth too between present and past and future, right?
Yep.
So again, the future is always available to all of us. We cannot sit here and predict. We can pretend to, but it's not going to work. It's just whatever comes, we just have to accept. But we can set intention and we can just release it, bless it, release it, and so that we're not there recreating anything from the past. Because a lot of the time, again, with the future, what we do is we put all the things from the past and then we recreate that's what's going to happen in our future. So that again doesn't allow us to be here and now. So if I let go both of them, one let go, one release, now I have my hands. I can
Mhm.
really be here. And here is where we can learn, here is where we can live, and here's where we can lead ourselves and others in our life. So, in order to be here, there's something else we can do too, right? Is there anything else you do as a ritual or everyday, something to bring yourself into the present, Liz?
I like breathing exercises for grounding for myself and also for students. I find that when I start a session with a breathing exercise or some sort of grounding exercise, that it helps me just as much as it helps the students that I'm working with. Taking a minute out to just breathe and be here and maybe notice things around. One of the exercises that I do with a student will look for different objects around the room, and each of us is in different rooms, right? But we look around the room and see, okay, what do you have that's red? And so I'll hold up something that's red and ask my client, what do you have that's red? Okay, what's orange? And just to bring us to the present, and we're looking around and thinking about each of these different things very deliberately and kind of getting out of our head. I think that's been one of my favorites lately.
Yeah, I like that. I like that. So should we breathe or should I look for something today? Because we're going to have to bring ourselves here today too.
So I've done it two different ways. With the colors, I've done like look around all around you and see something that's a certain color. And it's funny, when I was a teacher, I would do this in my classroom and I would notice little details in my classroom that I hadn't seen before, maybe, or hadn't been paying attention to. So we can focus on one color today, or we could focus on the rainbow. What do you think?
One color, because I will be busy finding things.
Okay. So you want to pick a color, and both of us can kind of look around, and we don't have to share, right? We can just kind of notice and take a minute to look around. What do you see?
So what do you see that's blue in your room?
I have a funny stress
ball. Squishy toy.
Star. Yeah.
That's good. I have a jacket here that I can show you, but I don't think you want to see it, but it's a jacket. It's a blue jacket. That's what made me ask you for blue.
I've got whiteout tape. We could always use this, right? To fix some mistakes.
Yeah. I think I have this bracelet has some blues on it too. So
I have a beautiful beach scene in front of me, not in reality, but like different photos where they have each canvas has a different piece of the photo, and it's just blue water, beautiful. You probably have the real thing in front of you.
I used to have the fake pictures on my wall, in my office when I started off. I had it, and I told myself, because it didn't even have windows, so I always told myself one day, I would have the business that allows me to stay in front of an ocean and have this real one. So it has come true. So let's talk about, so that's one way to bring ourselves here and now, right? To identify objects, because then we start noticing it in our environment, right? And then breathing. Let's do one breathing before we get started. So inhale for 4, hold for 4, and then release for 8. Let go all of that pressure. Maybe you had a lot of pressure today with the car situation, right?
Yeah,
Finding the right one. Finding the right one.
We're getting there.
Yes. It's not easy. It's not easy, right?
No.
Especially when you're buying for kids. I don't know why, because we just want to buy the perfect one. So okay, awesome. So before you are going to talk about your client's transition and how you help them, tell me, how much have you transitioned? Because you have transitioned out of the classroom.
So many things. And I think when I was thinking about talking with you about transitions, one of the things that came to mind was that my mom, even when I was younger, when I was in high school, she would talk about it too. And that energy that comes from transitions where we're feeling sort of off kilter or feeling a little bit nervous, she picked up on it and she would verbalize it. And I just, with thinking back about that, I thought that was so interesting that she understood that too.
Yeah.
And that, when, I had a younger stepbrother and stepsister, and they would only come to our house a couple of days every other weekend. And she could tell when they were coming from their mom's house, she kind of expected that they would have that sort of transitional energy. And that's what she called it. She's like, this is a new situation, new relationships. Well, not new, but different from what they had been in for, a week and a half. And so she kind of gave them space and asked them to give her space too, to sort of transition through that period, right?
And then that's a transition we don't talk about. When parents do get separated and divorce, children go from one week to another week to different households, and every household has its energy, right?
Yeah, and its rules and its routines and its dynamics with the relationships, and yeah.
So there is a transition that there too, and a lot of kids also struggle silently, I think. Because there's no choice. It's not a choice, right? It has to happen. So,
and maybe they don't expect it either, because they're like, this is my mom and my dad, and I had both of them with me before, and I had this established relationship with them. And then when that family breaks up, that energy changes, right? And the dynamic changes, and then maybe there are new people that are coming into the relationships, and so I think that is a really big deal. And I'm proud of my mom for honoring that, for recognizing it and honoring it. And I think that helped the relationships that she built with her stepkids.
Yeah,
right?
she was very mindful about that.
Yeah.
And that's what's important for any parents listening right now. And if you are like back and forth sharing your children between two households, it's almost important to even talk to them about it, right? The transition part. We don't sometimes talk about stuff, right? Like with my son, he went only on the weekends. Sometimes it's every other weekends. Most of the time I had him. So I've always talked about that, right? The expectation part too, right? Every household has their own expectations, different situations, different bedtimes. Like these are things that we can talk about it, that how that could affect you, how that could, keep you going. Because when they're dealing it with by themselves, we don't know what their feelings are.
Right. And just to notice it and say, you know what, this is normal. And it's okay. Like that you don't have to worry that you feel differently here or you feel differently there. It's, we're going to give you some space and give you some time to kind of feel that energy. And then we're gonna hopefully, like, she would notice that they would settle after a little while. Maybe sometimes it took a day, sometimes it took longer. But yeah, she also noticed it when I would come home from college, and she would name that too. It's like I think I left and was out of state, and I was gone for months at a time, and I would come back, and she would notice right away, like, whoa, you're not in a college dorm anymore. Like, let's talk about our routines and expectations again. Even though I was, a young adult, we still have to have those conversations in the family about this is what we expect, and this is what, like, this is a boundary that we're going to hold, and here's something that we can change, or that sort of thing. Like you said, to have those conversations and to not shy away from those conversations, because they are important, I think, to acknowledge.
And that's why I love the word, along with transition, I love the word expectation. Expectation sounds sometimes like harsh, but it's not. It's actually very much clarity, right? It's always brings clarity for both people, and especially around kids. They want clarity around their guidelines and rules, right? Instead of just leaving it kind of vague. If we could give them expectation, they love it, and they have a boundary that they can follow, and go off and do whatever they need to within that boundary. I think it's a beautiful word. I love it.
And it gives their brain structure and helps them sort of figure out, okay, where am I right now, and what are the expectations here? What does it look like in this scenario? And I think that translates to school as well. We always talk as teachers, we would talk about expectations in the classroom and how important it is to have those expectations, that your students would understand the procedures and how your classroom runs. And that's another one of those transitions too for middle and high school kids. When they're changing from class to class, they might see 4 teachers, they might see 8 teachers a day. And it's like going from classroom to classroom, those expectations change.
Yes.
And then there's also the transition too, and the things that can happen between class. I've talked to several clients about this. They're maybe in 10th or 11th grade, and so much happens between class, right? There could be some sort of drama that happened between friends or in some sort of romantic relationship. And so there's so much that is just coming at them constantly. And then they get to the next class and something has happened, and they're expected, there's that word again, they're expected to sit and learn, and stuff has just happened, and they don't have time to sort of sit with what happened and to focus and to ground themselves. And so that was something that I liked doing as a teacher the last few years, was starting class with a grounding exercise. So it's like, there had to have been things that happened to you outside the classroom before you got here. Let's take a minute and honor that.
Yeah.
Right? And so that was very important for me as a teacher, and as a coach, I see the same thing.
And that's why I start off by even our meeting here, always with that grounding exercise and talking about it, because even with every one of us, we're always in the past, always in the future. Like, it's just constant. It's a pull, like it's like this. And then you're like trying to do stuff, right? And the more you can able to pull yourself to the middle and be here now is when we can get focused, right? That's the focus part. Otherwise we're out of focus. So so in your life, transition wise, like, you've stepped out of teaching and now you're full-time into coaching. So how was that transition for you?
It was actually pretty seamless, because I was teaching part-time.
Yes.
And then stepped into the coaching and kind of gave myself the grace and the time to build the coaching part of my life while I was still in the classroom. And so, and then the summer between school years kind of gave me that time as well to figure out, how do I fully step into this but I had been kind of testing the waters and figuring it out. Like, what does this look like? What do I want my life to look like? We talk about the new you and envisioning and manifesting the things that we want for our life. And I loved that I was able to articulate that first and sort of tiptoe into figuring it out and making that transition.
Yeah, it's beautiful. So that first part of our program is coming home to yourself, right? Like you coming home and really figuring out what I want. What do I want in life? What does my future look like? Because when we build something without that, there's no destination. There's nothing. We're just aimlessly saying, I want a business, I want to be this, and I want to be that. But there's no real clear picture for our brain to focus on, right? So having the new you, now you're living the new you.
Mm-hmm. That was foundational. I think that was really important to be able to envision that. And a couple of times I've sort of like, I'm present, right? But I'm projecting into the future thinking, what do I want my life to look like? And even, writing a letter to myself a year from now and saying, you're going to be doing this and you've done this and you've accomplished that and you've crossed this hurdle or this, milestone. And it's very powerful, I think, to consider the future, but like from a grounding perspective.
Yes.
So just thinking about really what do I want and how do I take the steps to get there, and being present along the way has been very important.
Yeah, it was beautiful for you one of the messages you put on LinkedIn last couple of weeks ago when you were on your trip.
Mm-hmm.
You said, this is the same place I was reading my book, The Teacher's Epic Exit Plan. And then here I am a year later. I'm a coach.
Yeah.
So that was beautiful, the way you shared.
It felt full circle, and it felt really good to be in the same place and just kind of reflecting back on where I started and what I've built. It's exciting, and I have big plans for expanding my finding more families and working with more people. So
we just got 2 schools that we're going to be working with already. So we're expanding quite our program. Readiness OS is something that could help so much with the transitions, because just coming home to yourself as a teacher, coming home to yourself as a parent is the first step before we guide our students or our children, right? So that's so important. So transition, you said, from class to class, job to job, right? Job to a business, job to job could be a transition. Homes, different parental homes can be transition. And then a one grade to another grade level is another transition, right? We don't talk about that either, because first few days of the school year is so hard for a lot of kids, right? Mm-hmm. Like, even though it's a new grade, they're in the same school.
Or even, yeah, I guess that's true. Like, even from 9th grade to 10th grade, right? You've got a new schedule, you've got new teachers, new classrooms, trying to figure out where to go, and new classmates, and maybe some of the same classmates, but a lot of new people. And I feel like for some kids, it's really overwhelming. And it's interesting. I've noticed, having been out of the classroom, and I go back to sub periodically, it's so overstimulating. And I feel like my brain was so used to it because I taught for over 20 years, and it's kind of normal. And I feel like the beginning of every new school year, I feel overstimulated again, but then I'm in it still, like a prolonged, or continuing to build
normal.
Right. And going back as a sub, I was like, wow, this is a lot. And I'm not even teaching. I'm just they're subbing. And it's a lot. It's a lot of people. It's a lot of conversation. It's a lot of, people moving around. And
there's a lot of shuffling, right? A lot of things happen in a day. That's why they say, like, the actual time of learning is very little. It's all of the movement that takes the whole 6 hours or so, right? Mm-hmm. The actual, if you look at the exact time of sitting down and focus parts, are very little.
And I've talked to some of my current clients over the course of this last, I guess now we're 3 quarters in, right? We just finished in my school district. We just finished the 3rd quarter. Yes. We talked about using that time between class to ground themselves. So even if because probably the teacher is not going to, I was going to say, even if the teacher doesn't, but most teachers, I don't think, do grounding activities at the beginning of class. So we talked about, what can you do in those 4 minutes or those 6 minutes to ground yourself and sort of remove all the noise. Like, do you have the noise canceling headphones? Some of them do, but I thought talk to them about, focus on your breath from class to class while you're walking in the hall. Maybe you see some friends, maybe you're not with your friends, but can you take couple of seconds. Can you take 30 seconds? Can you take one of those minutes? Maybe you get to your class quickly and you sit and you just be with yourself for a minute and notice your breath. And they've talked about how that's helped, and that's been really wonderful.
Because sometimes between the classes, we're just looking at our phones, right? If we have them.
Or talking, worrying about social stuff and going, seeing friends, seeing classmates, seeing somebody that you had a conflict with yesterday or earlier in the day. And it can be a lot.
Yeah. And then you're not ready for the next class.
Mm-mm.
So now today I want to explore with you what most adults miss, how transition affects child's nervous system, emotion, and the ability to learn, right? So we've been kind of talking about that. So I have a question for you is, what are some of the moments where you see students struggle? I guess we started talking about that already too, right? So we talked about between classes, between parental homes. Where else do you see it? What about young adults? Let's talk about that.
I think for a lot of young adults, because they're on their own for the first time, maybe they've been dependent on a parent or an older sibling or someone else to help them with all of that executive functioning stuff. Organization, time management, especially thinking, instead of having that 8 to 4 o'clock or 9 to 4 or 9 to 3 school day, maybe they've got one class at 8 o'clock to 9 o'clock, and then they don't have another class until 2, and then there's another class maybe at 4.
Yeah.
And they have all these expectations. Here comes that word again. They have the expectation that they're going to be in class, that they're going to get themselves there, that they're going to have all the materials, that they're going to understand the homework, that they're going to be able to get it done, they're going to be able to turn it in. And there's nobody when they go back to their dorm room to say, hey, did you turn that in? So I think for some kids, that first time that they're out on their own, it's really overwhelming. And it's like nervous system, I don't want to say overload is not the right word, but maybe they haven't trained their brain to keep track of that stuff because somebody else has been keeping track of it for them for so long that they are just kind of lost.
Or just scared even to recognize that if I don't do it, there's nobody else gonna care right now, right? Like it's just me. It's just me and me. That's it.
Right. And it's a 15-week semester that nobody's necessarily checking up on you.
Yes.
And you get to the end of the semester, and you're like, whoops, I forgot some of the things along the way. And so for some young adults, I think it can be really overwhelming. And it's a lot of different things to keep track of.
So the idea there would be for parents to start transitioning them, even starting in grade 9, grade 10, even grade 10, 11, 9 even. Start letting them figure out their schedule more and letting them give them expectations that this is what's required, right? And then just let them figure out and let them not hand in some assignments. You can see that they're not going to, but don't, sometimes what we do as parents is we force ourselves inside of that situation and say, okay, let me sit with you. You need to finish this. You need to hand this in. Are you going to do it? Right? If we keep doing it and picking up that, they'll never learn. So
if we can give them open-ended questions, like instead of, did you turn in your history homework, asking them at the end of the school day, what do you need to do tonight? What do you have that's outstanding that you need to do for school, or when's your next test?
Yes.
And then that gets them thinking, right? And they'll get used to that planning on their own instead of depending on somebody else. Like, oh yeah, don't forget you have a test on Wednesday, or, don't forget to turn this or bring your best baseball socks or whatever you need to say, what do you need to take to school today?
Yeah.
And let them process it.
And they need to be in control of it as soon as possible. I know some parents might be listening to us saying, no, my child has to hear my voice to be the reminder of it. It's good to think that. I also thought that in the beginning of my stages too. But then I realized that giving them the instructions and leaving it with them and see what they do with it is way better to watch. And then when you notice what's happening, then you can have a sit down conversation instead of start nagging, right? Because usually that just ends up in nagging. Have you done it? Why aren't you doing it? Can you do it now? No, I can't. Can you do it in 2 hours? Then it becomes a negotiation and nagging. So now let's add something else to this conversation. Let's add ADHD to this and transition. So how does that make things?
That's a big one, right? I think having anchors for students, maybe like there's a specific spot where they create their own reminders and they put maybe a sticky note by their bedroom door, or they put it somewhere, something, right? They get into a routine, right? And so instead of having to think about it all the time and then, oh, they're distracted and then they're over here and they're over there and they're doing things, if you create a routine or some sort of anchor, then they know what to expect. And hopefully their brain is thinking, like when they see the backpack by the door, they're like, okay, I know what I need. I need to put the things in the backpack before I go. And maybe there's a checklist, right? Like, okay, do you have this? Do you have this? Do you have this for your backpack?
Yeah. And then I think with ADHD, you need to, like, every child is different, right? Every ADHD acts different in every child's, and then the family also has, differences comes with it. So when you're looking at a child, if the child's always the one who does everything last minute, if that's the way they go, then they have some kind of issue with procrastinating, right? Like they love the extra pressure at the end of when it's due date.
Driving on the adrenaline or something. Yeah.
Yeah. Like a lot of ADHD people with ADHD have that, where they have to do it the hour before and they're very focused in the hour before, but tell them 2 weeks before, they're like, no, I don't think so.
Speaking of timing, right? The living in the present versus living in the future. It's like, it's right now. If I have to get it done right now, that's the most pressing thing, as opposed to planning for the future, right?
No, it's not possible for a lot of people. So with ADHD, the most important thing is we have to get this child understanding. Like a lot of the time we give the label, the label is placed, and then we call it, okay, you have attention problem, you have focus problem, you have memory problem, you have organizational problem. We have all of those listed, all the problems are listed, but they still don't understand who they are yet and how their systems are interacting with each other. And that's where our readiness comes in. We're not looking at like, what's the problem here? We're looking at what is actually happening in here. And then when they start understanding that, they can then comprehend, okay, this is why I do this. This is why I can't stay organized. Isn't that beautiful? When I know, if people telling me, you're never organized, okay. And then I say to myself, yeah, I'm such an unorganized person, right? Now I declare that. What does that do for me? Nothing. At the end of the day, it doesn't do anything. And somebody says, you're so unorganized. I'm going to say, yeah, I hear that. And I know that, right? Beyond that, you're stuck again. But if we can look at the system, if the system, they understand, and then they'll say, you know what, I am unorganized, but I do know why I do this. I understand why I do this. And now here's how we're going to start organizing myself.
You can build in supports, right? You can have some sort of checklist, or you can have some sort of routine that you build, that you make sure, that you don't have to keep it all in your head, right? You can have, I'm walking out the door and here's my checklist. I got this, I've got this, I've got this. Okay, I'm ready to go. Yeah. Or with routines, with time management, right? Giving them maybe more structure to the time of what they're doing. Okay, do this for 5 minutes, or do this for 10 minutes, and then check in with me and we'll figure out what the next thing is, what the next step is. Sometimes people just need to talk through it, right? They get distracted on their own. You don't have to sit with them, but maybe you check in and you say, okay, what's the next step? Yep. And right, breaking it down a little bit.
When we get to the system level, and then when they start understanding that I'm just blocked in these systems and I can just unblock myself and get myself to do this, it's empowering. It's such an empowerment for the students. And an ADHD just kind of goes to the background of the conversation. But when we dominate with ADHD all the time, the kids then start, some adults too, start using like, I just have ADHD, right? Because they don't know more than that.
Right, let's look at the behaviors instead of starting with the label, with leading with the label. And because like you said, different people, it manifests differently, right? And so looking at what is a system that we can build for you? What is a routine? What are some concrete things that we can do for you to support you? I love it. That's one of the things in coaching that I really enjoy. With a classroom, you've got 30 students and they're all different. They all have a different upbringing. They all have different strengths and different interests, and being able to coach one-on-one, I'm able to actually really look at that student and look at their family, look at the environment, right? Another one of the systems, and kind of figure out what works for you, right? And really customize it and tailor it to that person, to that family.
Yeah, absolutely. So you created a framework for transitions around the word transitions. Explain to us, what does it mean and why did you create it this way? Give us all the breakdown.
So transition was my word for 2026.
Oh,
Thinking about, instead of a New Year's resolution, I'm thinking about what is my intention for the year. And I'm thinking big, right? I left the classroom at the end of last school year. And so 2026, I suppose, is my first calendar year fully out of the classroom. And it has been a big transition for me, working on marketing and putting myself out there and meeting people and networking and finding the families that need me the most. And so I did choose transitions, and I'm going to take it off my wall because I've got it right here. I chose transitions as my word for the year. So I talk about timing, that timing is everything in life. And I'm going to read from it a little bit because I don't have it memorized.
that's
But
okay.
talking about conversation and timing of conversations, and sometimes with a family member, maybe you know them well enough that you're thinking this conversation is not going to land the way that I want it to right now, and so I need to wait. Or timing is everything, and opportunities for growth, and deciding this is the time to take this leap of faith or not.
Yeah,
That's
I want to add that, and especially with teachers or parents too, right? Timing, like if you're already struggling in the classroom and you're not doing well, and people sometimes say, "I'll just, stay with this for until I retire, and then I'll just figure it out." But if you're not enjoying it, there's no. If you start not enjoying your job, you cannot be the person you want to be for the people that you serve, right? You can't.
right.
That's the end of it. You're gonna get bitter, and it's not fair for the other people to receive you in that state, right? So, and then also because our education system is the system that we also, we're part of, and that's a product, we're a product of the same education system. So we are all told employment is the safetiest thing, and we'll work hard, as we'll work 60 hours, 70 hours, 80 hours. I asked teachers every single week, 70 hours, 80 hours, and we'll just put in, and I don't feel like I'm doing anything. Some of them say it's like insanity, that it's not, doesn't work, I keep doing it. But at the same time, thinking about starting a business, it's a big flag for them, because it's risky, right? It's always risky. But if you don't, if in life, if you time it properly, if you do the transition properly, it's all possible. It's all possible, right? Yes.
Right.
So timing is everything. And then the next one.
So R in transitions for me is rhythm, talking about, am I fighting it or feeding it, right? The rhythm of my day, the rhythm of my clients' days, the rhythm of their workflow, that sort of thing. The A for me is awareness. Can you recognize what's going on?
Yes.
Can you sort of be introspective and think about your thinking and about your patterns and about your, things that you're used to doing? Are you aware or not?
That rhythm is very important for parents and families, because every family has a rhythm, every child has a rhythm, and as parents, and then the next word is awareness. So next step is to be aware of that rhythm.
Yeah.
Really tune into that rhythm of them, because without it, we're just kind of aiming it right with parenting our kids. But if we follow the rhythm, it actually helps us tremendously. Yes.
Yep. So we've got the T and the R and the A. Our N in transitions, or my N, is new situations, and talking about that, how they cause stress, but also growth, right? We've talked in our coach cohorts about getting out of that comfort zone, getting into the growth zone, right? And pushing yourself a little bit so you're not just stuck in that comfort zone. But, and, maybe it's a little bit stressful, but once you are actually growing, and it's exciting and new and that sort of thing.
Kids, yeah, you have to talk about new situations, right? Because they are nervous, they are anxious about something that's going to be changing, or uncertainty, right? Unknowns, uncertainty and unknowns are things. Even like sometimes going on vacation, right? How many questions does kids ask? Where are we staying? What are we going to do? What do I say? Yeah, we're there yet. Where are we going to sleep? Like, what about this? What about that? It's curiosity, but also it's a new situation. They want to get all the information about it so they can feel, okay, I got it now. I feel better. My nervous system is settling. I kind of have an idea what this is going to look like. So think about if they're going to college from your house. Think about they're going from elementary to high school, or middle school to high school. Big people, tall people, right? I remember me being so short. And my school actually was like, we didn't have middle school. So it started from grade 7 to grade 12.
Oh, wow.
So when I went in, I looked like little midget. Around grade 12, people were so big. So I used to come home crying. They looked like giants to me, and I looked like they're going to do something. They didn't care about me, but I just felt like I was too little to be in that school. I don't know why they had it. It was like that for me all my life.
Yeah, new
And then, so,
situations cause a lot of anxiety, I think, for young people especially. And they're thinking about their future, and they're thinking about where am I headed? What am I going to be doing? What's the right decision for me, especially in that high school, college
yes.
age group, right?
What am I going to choose? What courses am I going to take? And what am I going to become? Yeah, those are big.
Or if I choose this path, then what am I eliminating over here? And am I making the right decision? Because these are big life decisions, and I don't want to mess it up. And that causes a lot of stress thinking about those new situations and new opportunities, and what's going to happen. What are the consequences of the choices that they're making?
Yeah. Did you have ever nightmares about waking up in the middle as a student in university and stuff, like failing the test? I used to have all the time. I would get up, like I didn't even write the exam. I would in my sleep, in my dream, I wrote the exam, I got the result back, and I failed.
Oh no.
And I would get up, and so much in like sweat, those really scary moments when you wake up and you're in sweat, and then you think, oh, I haven't even wrote it yet.
That's actually I never had those as a student, but as a teacher, I had them all the time, almost every year, because it's a new situation, right? A new group of students, and you're thinking about what is this going to be like? And there was one year, there were so many. I feel like I had them almost every year, but there was one. You remember those old projectors where it had like a little lamp thing, and there was a transparency that you were projecting?
I remember those. Yes.
So one year I had my before school nightmare was I come into the classroom and I had like 10 of them, and I couldn't figure out which one was projecting the lesson. And all of the kids were looking at me, and I was like, I don't know. And I'm trying to find which one's the right one. And yeah, that anxiety is real.
Yeah. And it does wake you up in the middle with weird dreams that, I had so many of them. I don't know why I always got the test failing was a constant one. And then failing the whole course and the whole year was another one I would have. Freak out, because I was like because it's stress, right? You're paying for it in university, and there's so many people watching you, and like at home, they're going to ask what happened. And if you fail something, you have to lie, because you can't just sit here and tell them. Yeah. But I never failed it, but that pressure was too much.
You were worried about it. And so your brain, subconscious was.
And you don't have a lot of sleep too, right? As a college university students, you have very little sleep, because the courses are so heavy, and you have to memorize all of them, especially if you go into science.
You're living with a bunch of friends, and you want to go.
No, there was nothing. You just read the book as many times as possible and do the work.
Sleep with it under your pillow.
Yeah, I used to do that in case some of it would travel into my mind.
Yeah.
Okay, so new situation, stress. Yes. Okay. Next one.
So we're on to the S, was systems. I feel like we've talked a lot about systems today, that they help with organization, and you have to think through, like, what system do I need, or what system works for me? I would talk to students about time management and keeping a calendar. And for some kids, it's on putting a big calendar on the wall that they can see, a month at a glance. Or some kids, they really want to have a book that they can write notes in. Or some kids have their phone or their tablet, and they want to just put it easy electronic when it's right there with the alarms in their phone. And so finding the systems that work for you, right? Because something that works for me might not work for my daughter. Something that works for her brother might not work for her. And so figuring those things out and practicing it, and maybe not committing to it, but trying it out and seeing, does this actually help or not? And if it doesn't help, get rid of it.
Yeah, right? Absolutely. And then when we talk about system, I want to go to the systems here. Like, as a person, we all are run by so many different systems. We're a biologically living system that's controlled by so many systems, and we don't have knowledge of how this body works, this person works, and we're just doing all these external things, right? But in order to have the external things work for us, we need to know what's happening internally. And that's why our as a coach, this, when we start from the inside, the systems work very powerfully outside, right? The ones we set up, because it's in alignment with us.
Right. If we can unblock those different systems and get them working together, right? We're in flow, and things are much easier instead of fighting those systems. Yeah, absolutely. Yes. So and that kind of ties into the letter I, in transition, is I put intuition, trusting yourself and understanding yourself and those systems and what's going on inside. So I've had so my daughter is 16, and I feel like that helps me, like having her at home also helps me be a better coach, but then being a coach helps me be a better parent.
Yes.
And she talks a lot, and I feel like her generation is much better about setting boundaries and like understanding themselves and saying, this is what I need in terms of a lot of the mental health things. Like their generation, I think, talks about it much more openly than other generations have. And it's funny because she'll say something to me like, this is what I need right now. Like, I need you to give me a minute, or I need you to give me some space, or I need you to stop asking me questions right now because you're making me anxious or something like that. But I've learned from her now too, thinking about my own self and trusting my own self and letting her know, okay, that's what you need, but here's how I'm feeling. Like with the negotiation of getting out the door in the morning, for example. She's asleep in her bed, and I'm like, we've got to go in 10 minutes, right? And that starts stressing me out. And she's like, but I don't want you to bug me. That stresses me out. And it's like, okay, how do we negotiate this situation? Because this is how I react in this situation, and this is how you react. But we do have kind of a shared goal. I mean, I don't know if she actually shares my goal or not, but like she does need to get up and get out of bed and get out the door, right? And so having that intuition and trusting yourself and understanding what you need, and I guess understanding other people is kind of the flip side, which is the next T in my transition word is trust.
Yeah.
Building trust with my clients, but building trust with the community, building trust with my family, and trusting that she knows what her body needs and what her brain needs, but then also letting her know, this is how I feel and this is what I need. We need to come to some sort of compromise or some sort of arrangement so we can both get what we need, right?
Yep, beautiful. Love it.
My next, let's see, I have another I, is inhale. We talked about the importance of breath, right?
Yep. So
and
important.
The connection of breath, to being grounding and calming. And it's so simple. And we don't take the time always to just take a breath, right? Even just like the act of putting your hand on your chest, it's like a comforting thing. And just taking a breath.
It's just noticing noticing your breathing.
Because we do it so automatically, but then when you actually take a minute and like inhale and exhale and take a moment to notice it, it's very grounding and very calming. My O in transitions is organization. I feel like that comes up a lot. Do you have all of the tools within reach, physically, but also mentally? And are you open to new tools? Is your mind open and willing to kind of think about new things and new ways of looking at things and new ways of organizing your life, organizing your thoughts and things like that. Organization has, especially for middle school, high school, and college students, organization mentally, but also physically I feel like a big struggle for a lot of kids at that age, or a lot of young adults also.
It's important to start early to let them do it, right? Like telling them that this is what needs to happen. How should we plan it? Tell me, how would we get this done? So you have a project, it's due in 3 weeks. How are you going to get this done? What are the steps? Because sometimes we don't know how to break down the steps, right? We think we need to do them all together.
Letting them think through it, that metacognition, they're practicing and they're flexing that muscle, and they're forming those connections in their brain, right? I'm not just going to let somebody else do it for me. I'm going to think about, like, maybe somebody's guiding me through the steps, but I'm thinking about it too, and not just having them tell me, okay, first you do this, and then you do this, and then you do that.
Yeah. So in the coaching sessions, the same, right? Like we always let the student first go through it and struggle with it. Sometimes it's a struggle for them. They don't think of the steps. So then they might jump a huge step from one place to another. It's a huge step, but they don't recognize that huge step when they're putting it down. And then you ask, so you would go from here to here. So tell me, what are some of the other things that need to happen for you to get here? And then they then go, oh yeah, that's a lot of steps. I just need to break that down more. Like it's just like a practice. Like you said, it's like a muscle, right? That we have to build the muscle. Same for organization.
Taking the time to have them think out loud and think about the steps, or repeat them back to me, like looking at the directions and having the sort of the time to process, instead of like, okay, go. It's like, talk it talk it through with me and tell me, and then you can ask me questions along the way. Sometimes in class, I feel like either they don't get the time or they don't take the time to think through the steps. And like you said, they miss it because they jump, right? And then they're off on this other path and it's like the wrong tangent. But if they're able to think through it first and sort of, okay, and reflect it back, like, am I understanding this correctly? Did I skip a step? And just sort of verbalizing what's happening in their brain and thinking through it before jumping in and missing a step is a big deal.
And organization is problem solving.
Mm-hmm.
It's a huge part of it is problem solving, right? So that's how you build the trust. In building that organization comes with, the more they do it, they're going to trust themselves, and then comes you can also go backward.
Right.
Awesome. So the next letter is
to the N. Transition with an N is notice.
Yes.
And for that, I said, sit with your feelings to see what's underneath. Sometimes instead of like pushing through when you're frustrated, to give you that example again of my daughter, not getting out the door on time, I had to sit with that and like, what is that? What's going on with that? It's like my brain needs the time to know that I'm planning backwards, right? And so then I get frustrated because she's not coming when I want her to, but she's like, we have 20 minutes. Why are you bugging me now? Bug me in 5 minutes before we have to leave. But I'm thinking ahead. So that's me. That's the underneath. I'm sitting with this frustration and thinking, okay, well, she just needs to get out the door, but I'm thinking about all of these other things that need to get done before we leave. And so being able to just kind of sit with that frustration and think about, okay, where is this coming from? And like, how can I work through it? That sort of thing. And the last S in transitions is self-esteem. Mm-hmm. I want to work on building my clients up and build myself up and make sure, that people feel good about themselves and they feel capable. Because I feel like a lot of students, if they have some sort of diagnosis or if they've been struggling with something, they don't feel capable because they feel like they've been failing or disappointing people. And so just being able to celebrate the small wins, build them up, build that self-esteem, and, keep going from there, show them that they are capable. And sometimes it's big leaps and bounds and other times it's little steps. But celebrating that growth.
Yes, absolutely. So for parents who are watching right now, what is one thing they can start noticing about their child during transitions?
I feel like maybe just naming something that you saw, something little that you saw that they did. Maybe they did something without you having to remind them, or they remembered something, or you could suggest that they do a grounding activity, something like that. If they've never done that before, just take a minute. Like you get home, you're in the car, and like, okay, before you jump out of the car, let's do a quick breathing exercise. And then we're going to make sure we have all our things out of the car, and then we're going to leave. Or going from home to school, same thing. Let's take a minute. We're in the car. Let's take a breath. Do you have all your stuff? And like, take a minute. Cause like, oh, rush. And then we're like, okay, we're gone. But taking the time to think about that, but also celebrating those small moments of growth. Like, hey, I noticed you remembered your water bottle. It's great. Or, hey, you brought your laundry down and I didn't even have to ask you. Next time, can you actually do the laundry instead of just bring, right? Mm-hmm. But, those celebrating those little steps, I think, and trusting them, right? Especially getting into middle school, getting into high school, trusting them and kind of stepping back a little bit and giving them that, maybe those open-ended questions, the open-ended guidance, instead of, you need to be doing this. Well, asking them, what do you need to do tonight? You've got a couple of hours. What do you need to do? And maybe they're thinking, well, I don't need to do anything because I don't have a test tomorrow. My homework I got done in class. I get to relax a little bit. I get to play a little bit. And so just trusting them, but guiding them with open-ended questions to make sure that they're getting done what they need to get done.
Yeah, clear expectations. Again, like expectations can be used in a lot of time. People think expectation becomes very harsh, like, school has expectation, right? But I think having those expectations ground our children, right? They're the guy, they guide them, and they give them boundaries so that they don't always have to check in. They don't have to ask, okay, is this okay, is that okay? No, we already set the boundary, so they can just go off and do within that perimeter. They can go and do whatever they want and then come back when they ever need it. So it's actually more freedom when you set expectations with your kids and tell them your expectations and explain to them. Don't give it to them like rules. You follow it, or else that's not going to work either, right? I'm not saying to lay down the rules, but sit down with them and sometimes create with them. Like, okay, like I'm thinking this. What are you thinking? Because in our coaching, we don't co-creating with any of our clients, right? We always co-create everything with them because they need to be involved. We don't just tell them.
Especially as teenagers, right? Preteens and teenagers, because they're pushing those boundaries. They're trying to become independent, but they need the boundaries, and they're going to push, right? We know they're going to push, but then how do you respond to the push, right? Do you let the reins out a little bit and give them a little bit of independence? And like you said, co-create those rules, co-create the expectations, and be open maybe to changing them, right? As the student or as the person in your family shows you that you can trust them, right? You can let it out a little bit more, and then we're going to practice with that boundary, and then we're going to push it maybe a little bit more. And they are changing and growing and maturing so quickly.
Yes.
It's like watching my own kids. They're 12 and 16, and watching them grow and become more and more independent has been so fascinating. It's like I've been around teenagers for 20 years, over 20 years, but seeing it in my own home and just like knowing like, yeah, you were a toddler, what feels like yesterday. And now you're almost as tall as I am. Like, wow, when did this happen? And trying to keep up with all of that. And I know that their brains are changing and their bodies are changing and their, independence is growing, and it's so exciting, but it's also terrifying.
Yes.
But we're, like you said, setting those boundaries and letting them sort of safely push them and within the bounds of the expectations and things like that. But we have those conversations, because if you don't have the conversations, they don't know where they can push and where it's, where it's a set thing that, well, you don't trust me and you don't let me do anything and you think I'm a little kid, and there's all of that happening in the teen years as well.
Yes, that's why with my son, when he's now 19, like, yeah, the growth was just unbelievable how fast it went. But I used to, whenever he had an incident with his dad being so sick, so he was so scared, and those are transitions too, right? People getting sick and getting better or not, right? All of those are transitions in our life. So he was very, very disturbed. So I sat with him on our way back in our car, and I explained to him, there's going to be like seven things that could happen to your dad, let's go through those 7 things. So looking at possibilities, right? Like, what are the possible things that can happen in this situation? Okay, you leave to college or university. What are the ways it could play out? Like, just narrating that, each of those ways. And then when they go, when the anxiety does hit, or when they are in that, I'm transitioning, I don't know what to do, and becoming paralyzed or over worrying or stressed out, they then remember, well, one of those things that has to happen. Okay, let's see what is going to happen, right? And that is co-created as well. Like, what do you think is going to happen? What is one thing that can happen? What is another thing? If that doesn't happen, what else can happen? What else can happen? And then when we co-create all of those choices of what could happen, now the situation becomes more like, okay, we basically, during that time, you're already telling them how to handle each, right?
Right. Like working through it in advance, so they kind of know different scenarios, how to respond. It could go wrong or it could go right. And how are you going to react?
It can be in the middle, or a really good version of one, and then and then go all the way to the worst of the worst. And so now we lived through all of it, and I worked through with my kid all of it, my child. So now we have 7 different ways or 5 different ways now I've given them to relax.
I think especially for kids with anxiety, thinking ahead or ahead of time and talking about those different scenarios and giving them the space to sort of process it and think, okay, well, if this happens, this is what comes next. And if this is the outcome, this is how I could react, or this is what comes next, and sort of helping them process the anxiety and see potential outcomes, right? I think is really important.
Yeah. So that's now I've created that into doors of option, right? Part of our program is what are the doors of options we have? Let's go investigate that door and that door, right? So then it becomes a fun thing. And then we have something else very powerful is talk to your brain. So if any of you are listening, your brain is something that you control. It doesn't control you, right? So don't allow it to control. And the earliest that we can teach our children how to control it versus it controlling us, the greater it will be, because anytime they go into these anxiety or fear or anything, worries or anything, they can just talk to the brain about, okay, what are you talking about? What is going on right now? Why are we thinking this way? Why are you bringing this up for me? Right? I'm not thinking about this. Why are you keep bringing this same thing again and again? Tell me, like, and then you have a conversation with your own brain and it brings out lots of new information. So that also creates staying in the present. The more you talk to your brain, the more you're in the present. You're not moving to the past or the future.
Well, and you're reinforcing those pathways, right? And like, there's one way, like I'm thinking for example, like or I had a car accident a long time ago that was pretty traumatic. And like, when I drive, I feel anxious and I keep thinking, what could go wrong? Oh, that car is going to come and it's going to hit me. And I've been wanting to like train my brain out of that trauma response. Like, it's okay. I've driven so many other times and not been hit. So yes. I've been starting to talk to my brain more about it lately instead of getting into that automatic trauma response. It's like, yes. you're okay. Like you can stop, you can stop worrying, because think about all of those other days that you didn't get in an accident and all of those other car trips that you didn't get in an accident. And so it is very powerful to be able to talk to our brain. Yeah.
Yeah, it's beautiful. Teach it to your kids to talk to it and understand what it's trying to tell them. It's powerful. So thank you so much, because transition, we don't think about it. We're transitioning, sometimes parents even say, right, during transition is when we have big emotions, big meltdowns, big cries, right? Big attitudes. Sometimes people even say, right, if they're teenagers and stuff, lots of attitude during transitions and they're not listening to me. But then if we think about it, adults also have a transition from a job, transition from being single to be married, and transitioning from not having kids to having kids.
Right. Those are lots of big life changes that are transitions, right? And we're trying to get used to what our brain is doing or think through it. And maybe your brain is used to old ways of doing things, but now you're in this new situation and your brain is fighting it because they're used to the old situation. And so I feel like that's one of the big constants in life. Like we talk about change, right?
Yes. Yes, always. Yeah, we're transitioning from day and night every single day, right? So that's another transition that's happening in the sky. So, yeah, it's an interesting topic, because I think most of our problem, if you think about in life, revolves around transition
and change. Yeah, change is hard, right? But it doesn't have to be if you have the tools and if you have the awareness and things that you're able to, and the communication, right? You're able to sort of weather all of those changes that are constantly coming at you, any age that you are, any place that you are, right? There's change everywhere.
If you're not home, transition can be hard. If you're not home, which means you're not in flow. When you're at home, you're in flow. When you're in flow, you're most of the time in the present. So all of that things activates your alignment, right? And you then can look at and view things in a different way. And you can ignore a lot of things. Like, we live in a world that's crazy and constant chaos. So if we don't know how to bring ourselves to here and now, we could be trapped in other things, right? So that's also makes transition hard. And then also how we grew up makes a big difference too, right? So there's some comments here. Lori said, great topic, thank you. And then MC said, there are so many different transitions in children's life. In my area, there is a big transition from small elementary to a intermediate high school in a different town, like 20-kilometer away, and going from being the oldest student in grade 6 to the youngest student in the building with grade 12 students around them. Yeah, I remember. I still remember. I looked at some of the students like this. Oh my God, what are you going to do? Like that. I can still picture it.
Yeah, but then before you knew it, you were in the 12th grade and you were one of the older students in school.
Yeah. But the first few weeks were like, I don't want to come here. I was crying at home. I was like, no, I'm not going back. I'm not going back. It's scary. So thank you for bringing this topic. Thank you everyone for your support and any questions. I think there's one question I saw on LinkedIn. I can't remember. We'll go and answer it. Maybe you can take a look at it too. So thank you for transitioning. Thank you for taking the leap of faith and starting your business and transitioning into an amazing coach. And yeah, we're going to help 1.5 billion humans by 2035 or before. I think we're going to hit that before, because we have schools signing up with us for our Readiness OS, because it's powerful, because there's no other program. There's nothing out there that first looks at coming home first. Everybody wants to apply strategies and techniques and do this and do that. But internal work is number one, but not internal works, meaning set affirmations or mindset work. That's different. We're not talking about that. This is systems, what control our body, our mind, our whole body and being. And that's what we call soul print biology. And Liz is trained in that. She is our Blocks to Flow trained coach. So if you need anything, she is online. She's all over all social platforms. So reach out to her. Thank you so much, Coach Liz.
Thank you for having me.
Awesome.
It's been fun talking about my word for the year.
Yeah, let's go transition. Let's keep transitioning.
That's right. Let's keep changing the metamorphosis like a butterfly, right?
Yes, I love it. I love it. Thank you. Thank you, everyone. See you tomorrow.